Welcome back to the D.FINED Engagement Bookcast. I'm D.FINED. Thank you for joining me. We're meeting again with Devin Halliday. He's the author of Belonging Factor: How Great Brands and Great Leaders Inspire Loyalty, Build Community, and Grow Profits. Today we'll be discussing some highlights from Chapter 9. That is, operational objectives do not equal organizational values. Devin, welcome back. Glad to have you. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. How are you today? My name is Doug Fine, and I'm here with Devin Halliday, author of Belonging Factor: How Great Brands and Great Leaders Inspire Loyalty, Build Community, and Grow Profits. Devin, author of Belonging Factor, thank you for joining me today.
Doug, it's a pleasure as always to be with you. Thank you.
Super. We're in the home stretch now. We're going to talk about Chapter 9 today, and then we only have a couple chapters after that. So this has just been delightful. I'm learning a lot from your book. I'm hoping that people will go wherever books are sold. Go to Amazon. They have it in Audible, right?
It is on Audible, absolutely.
Yeah.
Paperback, hard copy, you name it. There's even some used copies out there, so some really good opportunity to get your hands on something.
Yeah, it's really good.
You can always head to my website, go to devinhalliday.com, and find yourself towards a author signed copy if you wanted one.
Oh, cool.
And we donate $10 from every book sold that way.
Look what I got.
Look at it, Doug. $10 from every book sold on my website goes directly to help rescue animals, which is a passion project of mine. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to share and talk about this a little bit. I think it's very relevant for not just the culture we're in now, but where we have to go.
Beautiful. So today is Chapter 9, Devin, and I want to first just briefly have you touch on this idea in your subtitle, Building Community. Just rip on that a little bit. Building community when you're thinking about organizations or companies. What does that mean to you?
Some of the best organizations are doing this right now. Companies like Zendesk, companies like even Salesforce has really moved themselves very much into this idea of the community that they have. It was really pioneered, I would say, more in the tech space, startup space, where you have to grow fast, be nimble. And so you need people who can be nimble, agile, accept and work through and be agents of change, working with diverse groups, diverse people from all across the world, grown up in different cultural situations, people who have different intellectual diversities that they might bring to the table, even though maybe they grew up right next door to you, right? So that is something that has empirically been shown to be a very successful piece. And so what does that mean, community? That means a place where people have a voice, they can share it openly without fear of retaliation for the fact that they have an idea that might go against the grain of what is particularly important at that moment to senior leaders. It means a place where people support each other and they can see differences in identity, differences in thought as a benefit, something to learn from, as well as something to be able to grow with. That, we're all rowing with different size oars, and that's okay, as long as we're all rowing together, right?
Yes.
And the other piece of community is what that does and delivers back into the business. You have engaged people who feel like they are trusting of the values and leadership of their organization, the mission of the organization, and that reflects then in how customers, suppliers, vendors, other stakeholders experience that organization. And so I mentioned, Facebook is one where in the tech sector, this was the genesis of their company at the very beginning. And even though they're one of the most profitable ad generating businesses on the planet, and they've grown to hundreds of thousands of employees worldwide, they still have some of that culture in place, where when their CEO does some of the things that their CEO does that are counter to what the employees feel the values and culture are of that organization, they can speak up and use the platforms the company has created to be able to do that, both internally and externally. That is very rare for organizations, especially multi-billion-dollar organizations like a Facebook. And so while it's not a perfect scenario, encouraging dissent is always good because it avoids the echo chamber that can come when you don't have that type of community.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. I'm also thinking, when you think about a community, in a community outside of work, like the city council, the businesses that make up the community, the schools that make up the community, the small businesses, large businesses. It's really a healthy community has a lot going on, and ultimately there needs to be a lot of respect within that community, even a civil community, out there, a city or a town. And I actually worked at a place many years ago that had a little pin. It was basically a hospital, and they had a kind of a campaign, but it was a long-term process. But they were trying to build a community of caring, that was really something that we could all kind of point to our pin. It was it was a warm looking kind of little logo. And that was a beautiful way to head towards when you're in a healthcare organization, community of caring. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the truest understanding here, I know I said a lot of words when you asked me about that. If I was to simplify it to just one real clear takeaway, communities, despite all their differences, despite all the diversity, despite all of the different backgrounds, thoughts, or priorities, a community is working towards or rallied around something shared, common, and understood more deeply than just a operational goal or a financial goal or a life goal. There's something deeper. And that's where it's the pride to say, I'm from Augusta, Georgia, right? The pride of Georgia, or however that comes up. So when you talk about a city community, right? And people tend to get a little proud of their hometowns and really feel that. And a great example of that, and I'm going to actually riff on something really quickly that's very different. Sure. It's affected me and my family so personally, and that's the fires in California.
Yes.
My parents lost their house a couple of years ago. We almost lost our new house we're moving into a couple of weeks ago. And that the community in Northern California and in Santa Rosa, where this is at, is a diverse community, both in gender and in race and ethnicity, but also in thought, political ideology. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think of Northern California as, it's all liberals. Oh, it's not. It's a really mixed community that has a good harmony together, because there is this idea, they call it Sonoma strong, Santa Rosa strong, mm-hmm. But this idea that in tragedy, we often see people come together, but then if a bond already exists and can be strengthened in that tragedy, really good. And so that's where companies can weather difficult storms, difficult financial periods, difficult external factors that influence a business, when you have the strength of that community and people are riding it through and not jumping off the ship as soon as something looks bad, right? That's usually when a lot of top performers go. They go, ooh, this is looking bad. I still want to make a lot of money. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You need them to weather it. So building that community is vital.
And that goes to that first thing we talked about a few weeks ago, inspiring loyalty. Mm-hmm. That goes hand in hand. Great community, it does inspire loyalty, because you have this vision in mind about who you are and what you want to be. And when times get tough, you need that loyalty to come to fore.
So you can deliver and grow your financial priorities and profits.
Grow profits, exactly.
Yeah, that's the belonging factor. In this chapter, the idea really is that organizational values don't equal operational KPIs. You can't just say, I'm going to have my key performance indicators that my leaders get measured on what is their diversity mix of their team. How many female, how many male, how many this, how many that. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Yes, it's important to look at, but you can't, and many companies unfortunately do this. For boards of directors, for CEOs, you can probably do it. But as soon as you move a little lower down the line where you're starting to get into operational initiatives, not strategic long-term of your business, when you start getting in the director level down from there, even VP level and down from there, it becomes really difficult to put some of these values as a metric. So if your value is about the diversity you have to represent the communities you serve, okay, maybe your board can have that as a priority and your CEO can have that as a metric. Okay, but down from there, what are the tangibles that actually deliver a more diverse workforce that represents the community? Those tangibles can become KPIs, but it really is a disservice to both your existing customers, existing employees, and future employees that you may bring on through these initiatives, and potential future customers, to make sure that you're looking at what is the impact and value add of this, and how does that become a KPI, not just what do I see?
Not just what I'm doing. That's again, operation. This is the chapter, and Devin mentioned it. Operational objectives do not equal organizational values, and operational objectives oftentimes just require doing. It's action oriented, and diversity and inclusion. They're action oriented, yes, but the value starts within people and within the leadership of a firm that's going to say, this is what we believe, this is what we are. So
right.
So act that way every day.
And the flip side is true, and this might be the more common, which is an organization says as one of its values, we are going to be the recognized market leader in our industry or in our field.
Right.
Okay, that's not a value. And I think we can generally understand that. The value might be to be recognized by our community as serving the most needs, or something that actually gets into the value that you're providing, not what your objective as an organization is. And so more times than not, when I'm working with an organization, and this is what really generated this chapter in this book, I find that there's some confusion both ways, but most frequently the confusion is, okay, well, what are your values? I don't know. So my values are grow the business, be number one in the community, be the biggest employer in the community. Some people do have a value like that. Those are still operational objectives.
They are.
So move that step further to what your value is that's going to allow you to realize that objective. And that's where we start to go in this chapter, examining an amalgamation of 6 companies that I call Company X, that have all of these different characteristics that I've just talked about, plus a few more, that ultimately led them to missing their operational objectives because they were confused in what their values and their objectives were. And then there's a story of a brand who's been able to also realize some great profit as a result of being able to match these things more frequently. We're never going to be perfect, but we're going to be aware. And that's the point of this, is where's your awareness and what are you asking those in your organization to do?
How about that? Let me kind of give you a thought experiment, okay?
Sure.
Because in the chapter 9, you say, and I just kind of like, wow, there's Devin like putting it out there. What's most important? You said diversity of thought over almost all else. So when people think about diversity, oftentimes they're not thinking about diversity of thought, but you say that that's the most important kind of diversity to have in a firm. But what I really want to challenge you with there a little bit is, let's say you are looking for diversity of thought when someone wants to come and work for you, and you're going to talk to the people you want that have a shot at it. What do leaders look for or listen for to determine if someone is going to bring diversity of thought to an organization? Is there one or two things like that might get to the nut of this person. Anyway, you go with that.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and I'll give you what I can give you right now,
Sure.
and then I'll direct you towards a resource that can be.
Sure.
So first, it starts in the sourcing and interviewing process, clearly, right? And what you're looking for in this specific criteria is candidates who are willing to challenge in that setting a statement or a position with their own well-crafted or well thought out version of what that might look like. Now, they may agree with you on 99.9%, but are they willing to say, and here's where I see an opportunity for us to grow further? And they bring that into the equation. That's going to be one step that's going to open up your ability to assess that.
Yep.
So there are specific questions you can ask or ways you can ask questions designed to elicit that. But you are both, one, looking for the candidate to proactively deliver that, but two, if they don't, you still want to assess it. It's really critical to assess it. So you're going to ask some follow-ups that might elicit that. That's certainly one of the ways. The other is, and let me connect the dot for you. Mm-hmm. The reason that's important is this is a person who is at the onset demonstrating that they're not in an interview, they're not interested in just trying to do whatever they think it takes to get the job.
Or say
whatever it takes to get the job. They're willing to be who they say they are.
Authentic.
Right. And bring that, if they're bringing that into an interview, they're going to bring it into the workplace. Now,
right.
Historically, many hiring managers might look at that, or even recruiters might look at that as potential liability, a person who they just might not fit our team. Are you looking for team fit, or are you looking for team add? I don't want to fit somebody into my team. I want somebody who adds a dynamic into my team when I'm hiring. I'm not looking for somebody to fit my culture. I'm looking for somebody who's going to challenge and advance our culture. And so that's the kind of the connecting the dot piece. Now to the point of, and I'll leave it at that for right now, just for a point of brevity, but to the resources standpoint, you can link here if you'd like to directly into where people can go to the books resources. We have an amazing digital toolkit. Unfortunately, there was an issue in printing, so the link in the book isn't quite exactly right to what the website is now.
Okay.
We link it in, and everybody who's buying a book gets an updated copy now. So that's all well and fine. But that will offer some free tools that you don't even need if you don't purchase the book yet. But once you have purchased the book, it unlocks a huge vast array of tools that give you the ability to do things like explore sample questions and then write out some of your own that you might want to use to explore different facets of a candidate's authenticity, of their willingness to challenge the norms and break the silo that you might have, and follow down exactly what we were just talking about. So that's a really cool tool.
You know, having had an HR career for many years, I just think that the mindset of many, if not most, HR professionals, quote unquote, as well as hiring managers, the mindset is not there to appreciate any kind of pushback.
Correct.
And pushback might not be the right word, but individuality, something that's unique to a person and in the way they think. A lot of people are looking for fitting in instead of advancing the culture, and recognize that anybody who we hire is going to take this place. This place is going to become something different because they're here. And I don't think there's a lot of understanding that is one of the most important things that people in the role of hiring in organizations that want to thrive and progress and be flexible to progress the way the market's going or the way the world's going. That we're woefully behind in just even having that mindset.
We are, and I'll close this part with an example that was shared with me one time by a leader who really inspired me to evolve a bit of my thinking, particularly in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
So this would have been many moons ago, and it went like this. I think I made a comment about we're all just a cog in the machine, right? And a cog is literally like the spike on a little gear, right?
Right.
And he said, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about a watch. Watches have, analog watches, gears in them. And if we all thought this way, that it's just, we're all replaceable, it's just a machine that's going to keep going, and none of us matter in our individuality differences, etc., then we never would have evolved from a basic pocket watch to a date and time, to a chronograph, to something that has moon cycles. And you start adding on all of these complexities, is what they're called in the watchmaking world. They're called complexities.
Interesting.
For a reason. Is if all we were trying to do was just replace a broken cog, we would still have that same old watch that tells us what time it is, probably fairly reliably, and that's about it, right? And then somebody figured out how to add self-winding into that, so kinetic movement will start to move a little weight around that winds the spring back up. All these things happen because there were decisions to say, we can do more, we can do different. I'm not just going to replace that cog. What happens if I add a few more gears? What happens if we change this? What else can we accomplish? And that simple example, as ridiculous as it was, it made all the difference for my understanding at that point in my career of what it meant to look for something that adds as opposed to just fits.
Right.
And while that might be lost on a lot of generation today who doesn't use analog watches or many analog products, I think it makes a good bit of sense. And the truth though is many organizations, newer organizations that haven't been around for 50, 70 years, they have a foundation already built in this.
Yeah.
But it's still a struggle based on human nature
to
continue the process throughout the growth of the organization. The bigger we get, things start to change and differ. But think about that watch.
Yeah.
Are we replacing a cog, or are we adding a new complexity?
I would just like to say whoever shared that with you had his or her own version of brilliance, because I think it's not a goofy kind of thing. It's brilliant. I've never thought of it that way. It's awesome. So glad that you have that story to take to the organizations you help and just explain it. Most people can get it. It's profound. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that with me and with it. Yeah. Okay, so folks, we just finished just a couple of highlights from this book, Devin's book, Belonging Factor: How Great Brands and Great Leaders Inspire Loyalty, Build Community, and Grow Profits. Devin, we'll be back together in a week or so with chapter 10, and that's called, this is going to make you want to come back, people. What would your 12-year-old self think? And I want to hear about what the heck are you talking about there, Devin? And we'll do that. Any parting comments?
Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week for chapter 10.
Yes, sir. Great seeing you. Take care.
All right.
Thank you again for joining us. And next time we'll be doing chapter 10 with Devin. Chapter 10 of Belonging Factor. What would your 12-year-old self think? That's provocative. So you can find more bookcasts at the Anchor FM site. And you can find more about me and what I do, Doug J. Fine, at the D.FINED Performance Solutions website. That's www.dougjfine.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and have a great week.